Hello, and welcome back to the Tea and Soju C-drama podcast, your drama hangout for all things C-drama. I'm your host, Liliana, so grab your tea, pour your soju, and let's chat dramas. In today's episode, it is going to be a mid-year review, so sit down while I chat about how my drama year is going so far. So, first, a little housekeeping. If you like the podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on the platform you're listening on. That really helps the podcast reach other listeners and it helps more fans find tea and soju. But first, also, for extra content, don't forget to check out Patreon, where you'll find behind the scenes content, Zoom meetups, and more. I would like to thank my patrons are Purple Dinosaurus, Marta, Caitlin, Raysheen, Nancy, Jane, Cindy, Valerie, Naz, JM, Holly, Haley, Maria, Nikki, Laura M, Judy Kell, Julia, Alan, Karen S, Cheryl, Ariane, Palms, Laura S, Sapphire, Stephanie, Mischief Kate, Anastasia, Boo Lovey, Ange, Lauren, Sandra, Reem, Ginny, and Karen G. Thank you guys so much for, being patrons over on Patreon. It really helps the podcast. And also, I hope you guys enjoy the content that I put out there for you guys over there. If not, if you'd like to just chat to me, come and join the community. We're on Discord, and you can also find me on Instagram and other socials. Everything is linked in the episode notes. So, let's talk about how I so far think my year is going. I don't know because I thought I was having a fairly good year, and then I actually sat down with the numbers and the amount of dramas that I've been watching, and I realized that actually I'm not that much sure how my year is going. I've had really good dramas, but I've also had a lot of dramas that don't really reach the I don't know what to call it even, like the height that I thought we were going. And this year and the last year actually, I sat down and right from the beginning of the year, I did something, which was I wrote down, I made my drama list, if that makes sense. So I have like a color coded document, and on this document, I have everything from, when I finish the drama, and it's color coded into like, I think Chinese dramas are red for obvious reasons. K dramas are blue. So it all is like gives me a very quick snapshot, and I also have it broken down by months and all of this. So I thought, do you know what, I know not everybody's a fan of AI, but I thought I'm going to give ChatGPT all of these figures, and I'm going to let it run some numbers for me, because I thought it'd be fun to kind of just sit down and come up with, what have I been watching? What are the amounts of dramas that I've been watching? What countries I've been watching from? And that's where it got really interesting, because for the first time in the longest time, K dramas and C dramas are neck and neck in terms of how many of each I have been watching. Now, take into account I'm recording this in August, and obviously I stopped counting in June, either June or July. I can't quite remember, but I'll have to check. So let's do a drama breakdown, shall we? So far this year, I have watched 51 dramas, and that includes July dramas. I did write down, it does include July dramas. So 51 dramas to date. 21 C dramas, 15 K dramas. And this is what I mean. They are a lot more neck and neck. They don't usually come this close, I don't think. By this time, I think normally I'd have watched more C dramas and less K dramas. But we are a lot more neck and neck right now. 11 J dramas. This has been a huge, huge, huge change, because last year I had not watched this much, these many J dramas, and I'm here for it because I did say I have been saying for the longest time that I want to expand the amount of J dramas and Taiwanese dramas and Thai dramas that I've been watching. And so far with J dramas this year, I have been able to do that. I have also watched two Thai dramas and two Taiwanese dramas. Those are the ones that I wish I had watched more of. I do have a couple more to add in from July. So this list is just a little bit out of date because I did so I think I recorded this like I made this document like mid-July in all intents and purposes to record it in July. And then life happened, life got busy, and I just pushed the episode back, which means the other 2 weeks I don't have the numbers for. On this list, anyways. I have it like on my phone, but not on this list. But yeah, let's do a monthly breakdown, right? So, monthly breakdown. I watched 8 dramas in January, 8 dramas in February, 7 dramas in March, 6 dramas in April, 7 dramas in May. Now, this is where it gets funky because I watched 11 dramas in June. Tell me how. Please tell me how. Because June was considerably busy for me. Like looking back at my calendar, I recorded a bunch of drama episodes, not drama episodes, a bunch of podcast episodes during June. I also went away for from the 20th till the 29th. So that's 9 days out of commission that I barely watched anything. So I'm sitting here thinking, maybe I just started a lot of dramas in May that finished in June because I don't understand how that happened. But that's the breakdown. And then July, up to the time of doing this, breakdown, I had watched 4 dramas. I have added a couple more that I have finished since then. But that's kind of like the monthly breakdown. And it is on average more or less the same. So about 8 to 7 dramas per month minus April, which I don't know why. Maybe I just wasn't enjoying anything that much, but who knows? Who knows? My average rating is quite fun because my average rating is 7.9 out of 10. Which I thought was quite interesting because I thought when I sat down to do this, I thought, oh, maybe I feel like I'm rating a lot of things really highly. But if my average is 7.9, it's still in the sevens. I mean, it's almost an 8, but still, I thought it would be higher than that. And I actually ended up thinking that's quite fun. Now, take a minute, take a pause, because who, not who, what drama do you think is my highest rated drama of the year? I'll give you like 2 seconds because if you know me and if you've been following Tea and Soju for any amount of time, you probably might get this right. And it's apparently one of the only dramas that I gave a 10 out of 10 this year. And that is Pursuit of Jade. Obviously, it's Pursuit of Jade. Now, admittedly, we have talked about this on various episodes, and I have said I know Pursuit of Jade is not a perfect drama. I can pick out so many problems with it. Do I care? No, I don't. And that's what gets my 5 teacups. It's not that it's necessarily a perfect drama. I don't believe such a thing exists out there because you can pick at anything. You can truly, if you want to, you can pick at anything and on any drama. So I have always said there is no perfect drama out there. But that is why Pursuit of Jade is probably a 10 out of 10 for me because I loved it so much and the whole fandom was loving it and we had such a great time. And I think that really adds into like the whole atmosphere of watching and being able to be in that moment. So that was my highest rated drama of the year. Let me know in the comments if you guessed that that was my highest rated of the drama of the year. Because if you didn't, it's probably because you haven't been around long enough. Because my Pursuit of Jade era was quite an era this year. Let me put it that way. So, and I do know actually a lot of people found Tea and Soju because of Pursuit of Jade. It is my highest listened to episode. So that's always a lot of fun. And it is my only 5-star teacup drama of the year. And I know a lot of people are going to come for me and be like, well, there's better dramas out there. Again, I'm not saying it's the best drama out there. It is the drama that I personally enjoyed the most so far this year. And, that doesn't necessarily mean it that it's going to invalidate other people's opinions, but we're talking about my, drama year so far. So, do you want to know what has been my lowest rated on the other hand? So there are three dramas in this category. One of them is not from this year. So all three of these have a 6 out of 10, which is for me quite low rating in general. And we have first up, Generation to Generation. That drama to me personally was just a hot mess in general in terms of story and in terms of um you know it just didn't work for me. Then we have the K drama Princess Hours, which I reviewed with Jess and Caitlin on Dayback, and I said if I hadn't been reviewing this for the podcast or for Jess's podcast, I would have not have finished it because I am just no longer the demographic that this drama appeals to anymore. And that's okay. I get it. A lot of people love this drama, and a lot of people had this drama as their first K drama. So, understandably so, there's a lot of nostalgia and a lot of love for it. For me personally, it's just not it. Because I don't have that nostalgia to kind of like hold on to. And then we have Ashes to Crown. Again, this is a Chenduling, and is it Zoyaran? I don't think it's Zoyaran. No. Oh my goodness. Who is it? It might be Zoyaran. I'll have to look it up later. That's the Chenduling drama that was out this year. And it was something. I still feel like I deserve an award for finishing that drama. And now I can still safely say I don't like Chenduling because I wanted to see if I was being fair in saying that I don't like Chen Juling's acting now that it's been, I don't know, 4 years, 3 years since I had seen anything from her. And initially, I didn't like it. I didn't like her acting. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to give it a pass. She's just not an actress that I enjoy watching. And then I was like, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to check her out again. It's been time. People grow, people develop. I'm going to give her another shot. I can still safely say I don't like her acting, and the drama was a hot mess. Hot mess. So, those are my three lowest rated dramas of the year so far. Now, let's do a little teacup breakdown. So, if you're a listener, a long time listener, or if you're used to listening to the review episodes on the podcast, or if you've just dropped into this episode, let me explain how ratings work on the Tea and Soju podcast. So it starts off as a 1 teacup, which is any shows that are below a 6 on MDL. We have 2 teacups, which is like a 6 to a 7 on MDL. 3 teacups, which is a 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. And then we have 4 teacups, which is 8.5 to 9.5 on MDL. And then you have a 10, which is your 5 teacups. So this is where it gets interesting. So far this year, I have one singular drama with a 10, and that is, Pursuit of Jade. And again, I do wonder if it's a drama thing or if it's me just becoming more critical of everything that I watch. Um, but then again, if that's the case, then Pursuit of Jade wouldn't be a 10 because critically speaking, that's not the right word I want to use. What's the right word I want to use? Um, Honestly speaking, it is not a 10 out of 10 show. There's problems with the show. However, do I care? No, I don't, because I just loved it that much that I'm like, I'll ignore the problems. They're there. I can tell you what they are, but I'm going to ignore them. So yeah, 1 5 teacup. 4 teacups, we have 16 dramas in the 4 teacup category, which is pretty good. Like, those dramas are dramas that I really loved. They're not my era's dramas, my 5 teacups, but they're dramas that I really, really loved. We have 19 dramas in the 3 teacup area, and then we have 13 in the 2 teacup, which is sad because that's a lot of dramas on the lower end, which I'm a little bit sad about. And then Lastly, my last figures, which I thought would be quite fun, was to break down my 2025 with my 2026. And this is kind of like where we're at. And this is where I found what I found really, really interesting, because up until I saw this specific table, I thought I was having a really, really good drama year. And then I looked at this and I was like, oh, yeah, that's quite interesting. So, first of all, last year, by the same point of the year, I had watched 40 dramas. And this year, I've watched 51. So actually, I have watched more. But here's the kicker. Last year's average rating up to, July was 8.16. And then this year's is 7.87. So we've watched more, but the ratings have dropped. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So does that mean that I'm having a worse year, or that I'm just being bad at picking the dramas that I'm choosing this year? And, I found that very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. My highest ratings are obviously a 10, my lowest are a 6. So they're at the same point. And then 9 plus rated dramas last year were 8 up to this point, and this year they're 6. So I think that's where the biggest difference is. And it's slightly lower on all fronts. And I found this really, really interesting. And guys, I know I'm probably boring you to death with this type of episode. I'm getting to the dramas, I promise. But I thought this was really, really interesting to kind of like put into numbers what I've been watching, and, what I've been thinking in terms of what I've been rating. And it seems like I'm watching more, but less quality, if that makes sense. So I've completed 9 more dramas this year so far. My average rating has dropped. I have fewer 4 teacups, but I have more 3 teacups this year than I did last year. And I have more than double of the okay 2 teacups compared to 2025, which is the biggest kicker. So I truly wonder if I've just been, you know, worse at picking what I'm watching this year. All of that to say that I felt like I was having a slightly better year, but then thinking back, actually, by this time last year, we would have had The First Frost. We would have had, what else we would have had? The Prisoner of Beauty. We would have had other dramas like that that really would have upped my ratings, because those were really, 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 really great dramas. And this year, we haven't had as many in that, in that count, in that corner. So let's move on to what you're actually here for, I'm guessing, which is, let's talk about my favorite dramas of the year so far. The first one obviously has to be Love Between the Lines. Guys, I went and did my list in terms of when I watched them, if that makes sense. So hopefully, you know, you'll see them as I go down, they are in order of release, not necessarily in order of, which one I loved more or not. So, first up, we have Love Between the Lines. This was a drama that I really, really loved. We've reviewed it on the podcast, Carol and I. This was a Chen Qing and Liu Xiao drama. I loved the two of them. I thought the concept was really, really cool. And I liked their love story. I did. I liked how they came together. The business, I could have done with a little bit less of that, but that's always me in general. And also, it was quite interesting because I had to shift my mind of how I thought about this drama. Because initially I went in and I was like, well, I thought this was going to be more on the game side, on the virtual world side, and that's not the case. We're seeing it much more in the real world, and then we just completely forget about the virtual world. And I thought it was going to be two storylines running opposite each other. That's kind of like the vibe that I had gotten from my drama list description. So that was on me. That was on me to know that are not to trust descriptions of the show. But here we are. This was one of my favorites. I really, really loved the show. Like I said, I love the romance. I even really enjoyed the secondary couple and the secondary storylines because everybody had their place and everybody had a part to play. They weren't just playing fiddle to the characters, if that makes sense. And I loved the female lead and her best friend. That is girl, friendship to the max. Those two were so supportive of each other. And, that was one of the things that I really, truly loved about that show. So that is Love Between the Lines. I loved it. I honestly think it's one of my favorites of the year so far, especially for modern dramas. I really, really did, love it. Next up is obviously Pursuit of Jade. This one had to make the list. This is an eras drama for me. Now, if you haven't listened to my wrap-ups, not my wrap-ups, my end of year episodes, I tend to have about 2 years ago, I started this where I said, these are my eras dramas. It's a step above my favorite dramas of the year because they were a whole moment for me. I was chasing episodes. I was in the community chatting. I was making edits. I was, sharing content about it constantly. They were a whole era for me. And that's what Pursuit of Jade felt like. Is the story perfect? Absolutely not. It isn't. Like, I could pick at so many threads and things, but I loved the experience of watching Pursuit of Jade with everybody else and just talking about it and living in that moment of being in Pursuit of Jade for however long it aired for. So I think that made it very, 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 um, you know, important. Like the atmosphere you watch something in makes it so incredibly important to how you're going to feel about a drama, I feel like. Because if you're watching it on air with everybody else and theorizing about it and all of these things, you are going to have a different experience than if you are binge watching a show by yourself later on down the line. And I feel like that's always important to sort of mention. But I loved it. And to this day, it is still my favorite cinematography that I have watched in any drama in a hot minute. So Pursuit of Jade has set the standard for cinematography for me personally. And I think that probably has a lot to do with why it is an era's drama for me and why it's one of my favorites of the year, I think. Next up, we have How Dare You. So this is Wang Churan and Chonglei drama, and it's, an isekai drama and I loved it. I loved these two together. They were so much fun to watch. The comedy elements of this really, really made the drama pop. And I think also because these two were great at doing comedic timing. They worked so well together and off each other that I think that really made the drama even better. And, I loved that aspect. I also adored the fact that it does get a little bit more serious midway through, and they talk about things that are sometimes not the easiest to kind of tackle. And I loved that. I loved that aspect of the show, and just in general, I loved How Dare You. It's true. I think I gave it a 9.5. So, it truly is one of my favorites of the year, very much worthy of being in this list. Next up, we have Unveiled Jadewind. Now, I think a lot of people didn't necessarily like Unveiled Jadewind, and that's fine. It's not going to be for everybody. A lot of people are probably not going to be into the fact that the cases aren't as well connected as, something like Coroner's Diary, even though I do think cases were a little bit long in Coroner's Diary. I liked it, but I think Unveiled Jadewind was slow for a lot of people because the romance was slow and everything just kind of like was slow, and that worked for me. I really liked how they truly did become partners first, and the romance is a side plot. And I think a lot of people were expecting much more romance out of this because it is by Lu and Wang Xingyu, and the two work beautifully together. This is their third time working together, so a lot of people were expecting, I think, more romance from this. I wasn't. I liked how the story panned out. I reviewed it on the podcast. I also reviewed How Dare You. You're gonna find a theme. And actually, I will tell you this now. I tend to review things that I really, really love and that I really enjoy. So, my favorites of the year in terms of C dramas, they have all probably been reviewed on the podcast at some point or another because that's what I want to talk about. It's the things that I really, really enjoy. So, all of these pretty much have reviews on the podcast. So that was Unveiled Jadewind. Really, really loved it. I think a lot of people, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it worked. Next up, we have Love Story in the 1970s. Now, going in, I didn't think I was going to enjoy this as much as I did. I have not been hitting with oh my goodness, what's the word? With youth dramas that much. But the fact that this was set in a completely different time, in a time that I really don't know much about at all, made all the difference. It made all the difference in the world for me because I love the fact that I got to chat to Haley, who's a good friend of mine, about this, and she was explaining things to me about the university and about how people got into university and all of these things that were happening in the 1970s in China. And to have the fact that she was talking about it and she was saying, my parents went through this, and I loved learning about all of that through this drama and through those conversations with Haley. So I think that probably added it even more. Was the drama like perfect? No. I had qualms with it and I explained them in the review. But overall it's just a nice watch, and I really loved it. I did. I loved the main couple. I think they were so freaking adorable, and I loved how their relationship kind of grew, and I loved how the characters around them, a lot of the time, yes, they were used to kind of like further the story along. The evil characters were evil characters. I was so annoyed with them. And I was like, I don't think I can see these characters as anything else right now because I just dislike them that much now. So the actresses that played, some of the evil characters did a really, really good job. And even some of the other characters who you think initially are not great, you end up thinking that actually that is just what life is, handing to them. So Love Story in the 1970s definitely makes the cut for one of my favorites for this year. So we are down to the last two so far. And actually, I'm going to add a third because this is not on this document, but I have since finished it and I feel like it deserves to be in this document. But the first one is The First Jasmine. I loved The First Jasmine. I think it's some of Bailu's best acting. The scenes were so good. I loved Chang Lei in this. I loved the story throughout. I really, really did. It kept me on my toes in terms of like, is this character okay? Is this character going to be okay? I have qualms with it overall, but I really, really, really did enjoy The First Jasmine, and I will be reviewing it on the podcast very soon. I'm very excited to talk about that. Um, but yeah, I loved the story. I loved where it came from. Wailu's character broke my heart in this, as she often does, but I think everybody was sobbing with her, when certain things were revealed. I don't want to spoil if you haven't watched it, but yeah, it was beautiful. I loved it. And that is The First Jasmine. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but yeah. And then next up, we have one that not a lot of people know about. Now, I ended up reviewing this on Patreon because I loved it that much, and that is Bloom Life. Now, I don't think this has that much of a high rating on my goodness, on MDL. So not a lot of people have watched it or even really know about it that much. But this is a 8 episode drama, and it stars Landy Lee, and it also stars Gu Jun Chen, Chu Tian, and Mukrem K Asir. Now, this is one of those dramas that are set on the outskirts of China, let's put it that way. And it's a region that has a very different culture to like a lot of like not mainland because that's still mainland China. I always find it so incredibly hard to kind of like talk about this, but it's basically if you guys watched To the Wonder from last year or 2 years ago, it might be 2024. This has that kind of vibe because it is set in a different place, and I loved seeing a different side of China that I don't often get to see. And I think that's probably why I love this drama so much. But I loved the stories and the amount of things they did with just 8 episodes. Like, this is one of the few dramas where I'm like, God, I wish this was longer. I truly, truly wish this was longer because yeah, I just loved it that much that I wanted more. And I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. Unfortunately, it is only available on iQIYI right now, but it's so worth a watch. It definitely deserves its spot. But yeah, Bloom Life is I always want to put of in there, but there's no of in the title. It's just Bloom Life, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's about 3 girls that grew up together and their lives kind of take them in different spaces. One of the girls, which is played by Landy Lee, goes to the city, to, to get a job, own a house, that type of career. And then she finds that she needs to go back home to kind of like rest and recalculate her life and to truly figure out what she wants out of life. And then the 3 friends kind of meet up again, and it's a beautiful story, beautiful story. There is some romance as well, and again, the amount of stuff they did in 8 episodes, it's truly my hats off to them because it's such a beautiful drama in general. So that is it on this document, but I am going to add one more, and that is Blossoms of Power. I ended up finishing this after doing the document, and I really, really loved Blossoms of Power. My qualms aren't I do have a couple of qualms with the drama, but my biggest qualm is probably the female lead, and I think that's what took my rating down a little bit. I think she's a bit too stiff and I need her. And I know people are going to be shouting at me from the other side saying, oh, but that's the character. Yes, to an extent. I needed her to kind of like develop a little bit more as the character develops, if that makes sense. But that's like that's in the grand scheme of things, that's not, the biggest issue. My biggest issue was that I got spoiled within half an hour of that express pack being out. I got spoiled, and I was so sad because that kind of like took away from my enjoyment of the show. And, and then it ended up taking me a couple more days to even finish the show because I was like, well, now I know. And then they had like 5 days when they weren't releasing anything because they wanted people to buy the express pack. And this is why Tencent drives me crazy because, you do lose steam and you end up getting spoiled and all of these. And people can say, well, yeah, you can just buy the express pack. But I was like, but I don't want to. I already pay, X amount. I don't want to buy the express pack. So that was my biggest issue, and it's not to do with the drama itself. So that is it, guys. That is my favorite dramas of the year so far. So that's 8 dramas. So almost, one a month, almost no, more than one a month. Um, so we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well so far. But to wrap up the episode, let's talk about some of the other countries' dramas that I've watched that I really, really love this year. So that's everything outside of China. The first one is Me and Thee, and this technically it started airing in 2025, but it went right into 2026. So I'm like, well, we call it a 2026 drama. For me, it is very much a 2026 drama. It didn't finish airing till January 17th. So it's a 2026 drama for me because if I don't see the ending in the year, then I can't judge it. So I loved this. Look, it's so incredibly over the top. It's a Thai BL. It's so over the top. The characters are so over the top, but it has so much heart that, I ended up really, really enjoying it. And then this year they did Peach and Me, which is kind of like the 4 episode follow up. And I loved it just as much. It's not in the top because it's only like 4 episodes. And to me, it was very much fan service. But I really, really loved it in general. So that's Me and Thee. And then we have In Your Radiant Season. Now, this is a K drama and it stars Lee Song Kyung and Chae Jong Hyuk. And I really liked what they did with this drama. I don't think I can spoil too much. I was shocked that this was one of my favorite ones of what I've watched so far. Um, but yeah, I don't think I can say too much because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But I love the chemistry these two had. I love the journey they went on together because it is very much a healing drama, and that is right up my street. Healing dramas are just perfect for me. So that is In Your Radiant Season. And then we have, my God, I love this drama. This is a J drama and it's called Light of My Lion. This deals with some heavy stuff sometimes, but basically, a brother is raising his younger brother who has autism, I believe. Let me just. Autism, yes. So he's on the autism spectrum and he both of his parents are gone, so he looks after his younger brother. And then one day they come home and there's this little boy there. And this little boy kind of refuses to leave. And there's a whole story behind that. And it's the three of them kind of finding their way through life. And I loved it so much. This drama has so much heart and so much soul to it that I really, really loved it. It does deal with domestic violence, and that is definitely a thing in this. So, trigger warning for that. But it's such a beautiful drama. And guys, I know what you're going to say. This is a 2024 drama. It is. But I watched it in 2026 because that's when it became available to me. So I'm taking that, with a pinch of salt, and I'm saying to me it's a 2026 drama because I watched it in 2026. Um, so that is Light of My Lion. And then the very last, well, actually, there's one more that I'm going to add. And I might bite myself, but we'll see. So next up, we have The Wonderfuls. I ended up really enjoying this. So this has a very unique cast. It has Park Eun Bin, and I'm like, if Park Eun Bin is here, I'm clicking play. I'm clicking play because I love her. I think she takes on such diverse roles. This also stars Cha Eun Woo, Kim Hae Suk, Choi Doi Hoon, and Im Song Jae, and they basically gain superpowers. It's kids with superpowers that grow into adults with superpowers. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I thought that this was a great show. It's 8 episodes. It looks expensive and, it worked really well. And I thought, first of all, when I went in, I'm like, this is going to be just pure silliness. It's not going to be that fun. And then you come to find out that actually this has so much heart to it and there is a lot of silliness, but I thought it was a great watch in general. Now, the last one, the very, very last one. And this is where I'm saying I might bite myself. And that is, I am going to put a drama on here that I am yet to finish, but I know, well, I hope it's not going to let me down. And, I just hope that's not the case because I am loving this show so much that I don't think I don't know. I think it's going to be very much one of my favorites. And I'm like 6 episodes in, it's out of 10, and that is Teach You a Lesson. I am loving this show so much. And I just love the stories they're bringing in, the fact that they're talking about various things from various points of view, and I just love it. I just truly love it. And the reason why I haven't watched it, again, I'm watching it with my partner, and sometimes that's just what happens. We don't watch that much every night, so it is what it is. But I truly think this is going to end up as one of my favorites for this year. So I'm going to put it here with the caveat that I haven't finished it yet, but I think it deserves its spot. Hopefully it doesn't let me down. And that is it, guys. That is my list. I feel like this episode was very waffly, very waffly. I'm usually a bit more put together, but it's really hot in the UK. My brain is so frazzled, and my office where I record these videos, and not these videos, well, these videos too, but the podcast in general is really damn hot. And even if I had, like, I can't really turn on a fan or anything like that because otherwise that's going to be all up in the audio. And I don't want you guys to be stuck listening to like fans in the background. So it's really hot and my brain is very fried. So hopefully this was, halfway decent of an episode for you guys. I'm really hoping that's the case. And, let me know. Come and chat to me, whether it's on Instagram DMs, whether it's on Discord, whether if you're listening on Spotify, you can just leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just leave a comment. I want to know what you guys have experienced in the first half of the year. What's your drama watching so far has been like? And what are your top dramas of the year so far? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye.